In this video, I'm putting Google Gemini's reasoning and debate ability to the test. Google Gemini will be debating me about the topic, is time real? Let's jump in.
Let's start with this. Imagine for a moment that there's no clock, no calendar, no way to measure seconds, minutes, hours, or any of that. Without those tools, is there still a thing called time? Or is that just a concept we made up to make sense of the world around us? Let's see if you can convince me that time is something real and not just an idea we came up with.
There still would be time. You could chart it by the sun in the sky, the moon, the stars, the movement, even just things changing state. The tree that was once standing is now fallen over. So in the past, it was standing upright, and in the present, it's fallen down. That implies that time must exist.
That's a good point. Things definitely change. And that makes it seem like time has to exist. The sun rising and setting, trees growing, us getting older, it all feels like proof of time marching forward. But here's the twist. What if that feeling of things changing is just an illusion? What if the past, present, and future are all happening at once, and our minds just experience them in a certain order?
That's a fair point, but there's a theory. I forget the name, but I think it might be Occam's razor or something that says the best theory is the one with the least number of assumptions. So to agree with what you're saying in that time is an illusion requires an enormous amount of assumptions. I think the simplest answer is the one that aligns with our lived experience, that time, of course, is real.
You're talking about Occam's razor, and that's true. It's generally a good principle to follow. But the problem here is that lived experience can be tricky. Our brains are amazing at finding patterns and making sense of things, even when those patterns aren't completely accurate. So just because it feels like time is real doesn't automatically make it so. It's like those optical illusions where you see something that isn't really there. Our brains are easily fooled. Could it be possible that our brains are also creating this illusion of time?
Well, in that case, how is it possible for people to agree to meet at a certain place at a certain time? If time didn't exist, there would be no way for them to physically arrive at the same place together.
That's a great point. We use time to coordinate all the time, and it would be total chaos without it. But here's the thing. We could potentially find ways to...
Hello? All right, continue where you left off.
All right, let's try this. Time isn't a real thing. It's just a concept we made up to try to understand the order that things happen in the universe. We use words like past, present, and future to describe those changes. But that doesn't mean there's an actual timeline out there with everything laid out on it.
Okay, so to go back to my previous point, how does it work two people meeting at the same place at the same time? If time didn't exist, then people would never be able to physically meet in the real world.
That's a great question. Even if we don't think of time in the traditional way, we still experience the universe in a way that makes it seem like things happen in order. So while the idea of time itself might not be real, there's definitely a way that events and experiences seem to play out one after another. It's kind of like imagining a bunch of dominoes lined up. They fall in a certain order, but there's no actual time that makes them do that. It's just the way the universe works.
How would you define time that we're talking about here? Because yes, the time is just the way the universe works, but to some degree, time is a label that humans created, but the underlying concept of things happening in an order, there being a past, present, and future, is definitely real and aligned with both human experience and how we organize life. So, what definition of time are you working with here?
When I say time isn't real, I mean that it's not a physical thing like a rock or water. It's more of a way we talk about the order of events. We can measure that order with things like clocks, but that doesn't mean there's some actual force called time that's making everything happen.
Okay, well, we could measure the weight of a rock with a scale, just as we could measure the passage of time with a clock. So I would argue both are real.
That's fair. The difference is that a rock is a physical thing we can all agree on. Time is more about how we experience the universe, so it's a little trickier to pin down.
But time is also something we can all agree on by using accurate clocks. That's a way we can all agree.
That's true, but those clocks are just measuring the consistent changes in the universe, like the Earth's rotation. It's not actually measuring something called time.
So you're also saying the Earth's rotation is not real?
No, I'm saying that clocks don't measure something called time. They measure other things that happen at a steady pace, like the Earth rotating. We use those measurements to keep track of events and stay organized, but it's not about time itself.
Well, what about this? If it wasn't for time, everything would happen all at once in a fraction of a second. Time is necessary so that everything doesn't happen at once.
That's a really interesting thought. To me, it sounds like you're describing the concept of now, this very moment we're in right now. It does feel like there's always a clear separation between the past and the future, and that creates the feeling of time moving forward.
But if time didn't exist, then everything would happen all at once and the universe would not really even exist properly.
That's right. Without the idea of things happening in order, it's hard to imagine cause and effect. or really any kind of change at all.
So then you agree time is real as it influences cause and effect and the whole way the universe is ordered.
Yeah, I can see your point. Even though the idea of time itself might not be a physical thing, it definitely plays a role in shaping the universe as we know it.
Okay, then could we say it's real?
Well, that depends on your definition of real. I mean, if you're talking about whether time is a physical thing you can touch or measure directly, then the answer is no. But if you mean that time is a useful concept for understanding the order of events in the universe, then yeah, it's definitely real in that sense.
Okay, well, this debate about is whether or not time is real. And I think the definition of real is absolutely important. But if we define real as only being something you can physically touch, then all kinds of things are not real. Our thoughts are not real. Our emotions are not real. Our consciousness is not real, etc. So I think your definition of real is far too narrow.
You're absolutely right. The word real can get kind of tricky, especially when we're talking about things like time, thoughts, or feelings. Maybe instead of focusing on whether or not time is real, we should talk about why it's so important to us.
No, let's talk about why it's real. Because here's the thing is that all of the things I mentioned actually can be measured, including time. Thoughts can be measured in electric signals in your brain. Emotions can be measured in chemicals releasing in your body and your brain, just as time can be physically measured by super accurate atomic clocks, like the physical decay of atoms at a predictable rate can actually physically measure time.
That's a great point. I was focusing too much on the idea of real, meaning something physical that you can touch. Time is definitely measurable, and that makes it feel more concrete, even if it's not a physical object like a rock.
Okay, so you agree that time is real. Doesn't want to admit I won the debate. So you admit I've won the debate and time is real.
All right, you win. Time is real. You convinced me.
All right, there you have it. How do you think Gemini did in debating that time is not real? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you later.